Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and today I'm sharing 10 cards using the Simple Stories Heart collection that was part of the Love From Lizi June card kit. I'm a little bit behind sharing these because I was so busy last month, but hopefully you will still be interested in watching them. For each of my cards I have picked out a sketch to use as a starting point for my design, and if you'd like to see pictures of the sketch, there's a link in the description box to my blog post and you can find pictures of all the sketches I have used on there. So this first one is using Sketch Saturday 306, and I've picked out the cutter part with the black and white striped heart with the gold edging, and I'm using the stamp set to heat emboss a sentiment onto that cutter part using Golden Crown embossing powder. And then I have the kind of confetti pattern paper as my background panel and a strip of the grey and white polka dot paper for the strip element of the sketch. I didn't do the strip the whole way across because it's going to be covered by the cutter part anyway, so I thought I would conserve some of that pattern paper. I'm using gold glitter pinstripe peel-offs to edge all the way around my background pattern, the edges of the strip, and also around just 3 edges of the cutter part. The cutter part's going to be butted up against the edge of the background paper anyway, so I thought I didn't need to use any peel-offs on that edge that's going to be against the peel-off on the background, because that way I'm saving my peel-offs. I'll pop up the cutter part on foam tape to give it a bit of dimension, and then I'm going to add 2 of the glittery flower embellishments that were part of the kit, and I will use glossy accents to adhere those into place, which will complete my first card. Moving on to the second card, I'm using another cutter part with the heart on it, and this time my sketch is Full 2 Layout 111. I'd not heard of these sketches before, but I used a couple of them in this video. So I have the cutter part and then 2 pieces of pattern paper. I have the grey and white polka dots for my background pattern, and then I have a floral design to mat my cutter part onto. And again, I'm using peel-offs to edge my elements. This time I'm using the kind of minty glitter peel-offs, and I've first adhered my polka dot pattern onto my teal card base, and then I'll put the floral paper on top of that and edge those with the mint peel-offs. I did get my background panel slightly off center, so whilst I'm using the narrowest peel-offs for 3 edges of the background, I actually used a slightly wider one on the 4th edge where there was a bigger gap of the card base, just to try and help even out the look a bit. And then I will use the narrow ones again to edge that pattern paper in the center of the design. Once I had all of the peel-offs in place, I then added some foam tape on the back of my cutter part elements so that I can give that a bit of dimension. And I will take the backing off the foam tape and position that into the center of that floral panel, try and get it evenly in place and press it down. And as a final touch, I'm adding just a tiny bit of a sticker which has a little heart on it as a little tab embellishment there. My third card has a very similar cutter part to the previous one. A lot of the elements in this kit have a kind of sympathy design, but I tried to go for more general love cards, which can work as sympathy cards but don't have to be sympathy cards. I like when I can get cards that have multi-purpose to them. I'm using a light teal or minty coloured card base here, and I chose the diamond pattern paper as my background panel. Then there's this lovely heart pattern paper in the kit, and I cut a strip of those hearts to go down the left hand side of my card. I'm using the green glitter peel-offs again, and this layout is another Full 2 layout. This is number 36. Again, all the sketches are linked and shown over on my blog post. I cut away a piece of the peel-off from the inner edge of my heart strip because that again will be hidden behind my cutter part, so I didn't want to waste that piece. And this time I'm not adding any dimension, I'm just adhering everything down flat because I thought the layers give enough interest without having to add any foam tape there. So that completes card number 3. Then we'll move on to card number 4. And I'm starting with this love word, which is from the sticker sheet. I've used my anti-static powder tool to remove the stick from the back of the sticker, and then I'm coating it with embossing ink and clear embossing powder because I want to make it a kind of dimensional embellishment. And I do that several times until I am happy with the depth of the coverage there. Then I will start assembling my card. I'm using the heart pattern paper that I used a bit of in the last card as my background panel. Then for the strip that goes across this layout, which is Operation Right Home 26, I'm using some of the black and white pattern paper. It's kind of almost starry looking. And I use 2 pieces rather than a full strip because that way I can conserve some of the paper. And here I'm using gold mirror peel-offs because I thought they went well with that embellishment. The cut part that I am using for this card has that same heart pattern as the pattern paper does, with one of them being a kind of tealy colour, which is why I decided to use the tealy coloured card base. So once I have all of the pattern papers adhered down and the peel-offs in place, I'm going to use my glue pen to put glue on the back of the heat embossed word and adhere it to my cut part panel. I'm then going to put foam tape all along the back of that cut part panel to give it some dimension, and I will pop that up in the centre of my card. And as a finishing touch, I'm adding some glaze to that colourful heart on the cut part panel just to bring in some more shine. And that completes my 4th card. Moving on to card number 5, I kept this one really clean and simple. I'm using another Sketch Saturday sketch this time, and this is number 322. This sketch has 3 kind of stripes along the lower edge of the card. So I'm using the peach and gold sway peel-offs that came in the kit for this. I considered using a large, a medium and a small, but I actually decided to just use 3 of the largest sized peel-offs here. And I'm going to use my grip mat to help make sure I have them properly lined up. For my cut part, I'm using the one that says Thinking of You, which has a dandelion on it. And I'm not going to be matting or edging this time. I just wanted to keep it very simple. And then I'm going to just check the positioning of the cut part to work out exactly where I want it on my card base. And before I stick it down, I have another sticker from the sticker sheet, which is a kind of grey and white polka dot tab. Again, I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool to remove the stickiness from the back of it. And then I'm going to adhere it just behind the top left edge of my cut part. I'll then turn the panel over and put foam tape all over the back to pop it up a bit, and then position that into place on my card base, overlapping those sway peel-offs, which completes card number 5, which is very clean and simple design. Moving on to card number 6, I'm going to be doing some die cutting. With this video, I was mostly trying not to use dies or anything so that you're not having to bring much else into the creations. You could of course do this design by using just your paper trimmer to trim down the strips, and you wouldn't even have to cut out the wreath if you wanted. You could just use it as a square or rectangle element instead of a circle. This sketch is Sketch Saturday 254, and I have the grey and white polka dot paper as my background paper again, and I'm adhering 3 strips of other pattern papers going across it. These I have die cut with a stitched die from Cat Scrappiness, and I will have a link to those in the description box below, along with all the other products I have used in this video. I did play around for a little while to work out what order I wanted those strips in. Originally I was thinking I wanted the black one at the top, but then I felt it competed with the black of the sentiment on the wreath, so I swapped the black one with the yellow one. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do for my card base. At first I was going to use white, but it didn't look quite right. Then I thought I'd try cream, but I didn't like that either. So I went back to the white card base and I'm colouring it up with Alter New Mountain Mist ink just around the edges to customise my own card base colour and make it fit with the colours of my pattern papers and cut parts a bit better. I'm then going to pop up the wreath over the top of my pattern paper elements, and I'm using foam squares for this. And that completes my 6th card. Moving on to card number 7, and I will be using some ribbon on this one. I very rarely use ribbon, but I did decide to bring it in for this one. Again, I'm using one of the cut parts and I'm fussy cutting off the bottom portion of this because, as I said, I want these to be a bit more general use than just sympathy cards as much as possible. So I'm removing that with sympathy portion. I think Scott from the Love From Lizi design team cut out this cut part in the same way in his 10 cards 1 kit video. So I'm then going to adhere that piece of cut part onto some of the specialty cardstock, this kind of a peachy colour, and then I will start assembling my card base. I have a black card base and I'm going to add some of that scalloped sticker from the sticker sheet. The sketch I'm using, which is Sketch Saturday 249, has this kind of scalloped edge on it, so I thought the sticker worked perfectly for this. For the second layer of the sticker, I am going to pop it up on foam tape. The sketch actually has the rectangle element overlapping the scallop element, but I decided to trim it down so it meets it rather than overlapping it, and this will also be popped up on foam tape so it's at the same level as that higher piece of the scallop sticker. Here is where I bring in the ribbon, and this is kind of a dark grey ribbon, and I'll add that along the top edge of the scallop sticker. Normally I would probably use a peel off for this, but I didn't have one in the colour I wanted, so instead I used the ribbon, and I also added a bow of that same ribbon just to finish off that design. So that's card number 7. Moving on to card number 8, I'm going to do something a bit different and create an interlocking gatefold card, which is not something I would normally do. So to do this, I'm using the piece of pearlized black paper, and I scored it at, it should be scored at 2 2/8 inches in from each side, but I think I mismeasured it and I did 2 1/8, so I had a bit of a gap in the middle. So I fixed this gap by using some of that peachy pearlized card again, and I just cut 2 strips of it to edge where my folds meet in the middle, which also adds further interest to the design. I think I like the look of it even if it's not what I'd originally intended. The sketch I'm using for this card is Sketch Saturday 262, and this worked really well actually for this interlocking gatefold design. I'm using the same peachy pearlized paper to create the frame for my gatefold using 2 lawn fawn stitched rectangles, and I've used the smaller of the 2 rectangles to cut out the cut apart piece as well. I used the same 2 ovals together as a frame to cut some pieces of white cardstock, which I can then layer together and put behind that pearlized cardstock just to add some thickness to my frame. So I just use liquid glue to adhere those all together and make sure they're properly lined up with each other, and making sure I have the pearlized one on top, of course. I decided to further embellish that join on my card by adding some of the peel-offs along the edge of it just to add a bit more interest, and I did use my reverse tweezers to help me get those properly into place, and I'll put the remaining pieces back on the sheet for later use. Then I would check exactly where I want the oval element positioned and make a mark with some tape on my frame so I know where to put my adhesive. I only want the glue for the frame on the right hand side, so that will be stuck into place on the right hand side, and using liquid glue did give me a little bit of wiggle room to get it properly in position. Then I will add glue so I can adhere my oval element, the centre, and this is only being adhered into place on the left hand side, so then the pieces interlock together when it's closed and you open by unfolding them from each other. As a final touch, I'm going to embellish with some of the glittery golden flowers, and I'm adhering these just onto the frame, making sure they don't overlap because I don't want them to adhere to that inner oval, otherwise it won't open anymore. And I did use my glue gun to adhere them because being glittery, sometimes they don't hold as well as you like, and I wanted a nice strong hold so that they won't be coming off when the card is open and closed. So then we're on to card number 9, which uses Sketch Saturday 340, and I have this lovely black and gold heart pattern paper as my background. As you can see, I managed to rip a piece off the top of it. As I was putting the tape on the back of it, it kind of got twisted and caught. So I am going to kind of rearrange the sketch a bit just to hide that, because I didn't have another piece of this paper to use and I really wanted to use this design, and also because I don't like wasting my papers or any other elements, so if I can fix a problem then I'd rather fix it than not. My cut apart I have matted onto a piece of the white pearlized card, and then I'm going to pop it up on foam tape. I ran out of foam tape right in the middle of doing this, and I thought I'd be able to get the last little bit off of the ring, but I couldn't, so instead I'm just going to have to make do with the amount I managed to get. Before adhering that cut apart into place, I'm going to add some banner pieces using that same pearlized white card that the cut apart is matted on, and I will use my T-square ruler for lining these up to make sure that they are completely aligned with one another, because that way it won't be obvious that they're two pieces. I want to give the impression that it is just one banner behind that cut apart. And I'm using my glue pen here just to quickly adhere those into place. I will then bring back the cut apart, remove the backing paper from the foam tape and adhere that into place on top. And then I have one of the gold glitter flowers which I'm going to adhere over the torn piece of the pattern paper so that you can no longer see that and nobody would know that it had ever been ripped. So that will complete my 9th card. Now we are on to card number 10, and I'm using Sketch Saturday 268 for this. I have the polka dot background that has the kind of larger dots on it as well for my background paper, which I just stuck down flat to my pale teal card base. Then I'm going to adhere my cut apart, which I've trimmed down to fit the sketch a bit better. I'm going to adhere that onto some of that kind of starry pattern paper as the mat. And I also have a third piece of pattern paper, which is the one with the triangle design. I thought that went nicely with the dotty design because it's a nice contrast to it. So I'll adhere that flat into place. I didn't use any peel-offs on this card because honestly I wasn't really sure what colour I wanted to use, so I just decided against doing any. In hindsight, maybe I would have used the mint glitter ones again. I think those would work nicely, but it's not too terrible without any of them. My focal panel will be popped up on foam tape, and the lines of that triangle pattern paper really help with getting that panel into place. So that completes card number 10. I do actually have one more card still because I was inspired by that little cut apart. I decided to use the matching larger piece, which is from one of the pattern papers, and I'm just going to make a really simple card design with this. So I cut it down from the large pattern paper to be just smaller than my card base, so there will be a reveal around the edge, and then I'm just very simply going in and adding a drop shadow to the letters of the word love using my lightest grey alcohol marker. These are Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers that I use. So I'm adding this drop shadow on the left hand side of all the letters, and actually I also do decide to go in and add it along the bottom as well, so this gives the impression that the light source is coming from the top right, which actually is how I usually do my light source anyway. So I'm just very carefully tracing along the edges of all the letters until I'm happy with how it looks, and this really helps that large word pop from the background. You could also edge the banner portions, the smaller sentiments as well if you wanted, and give those a drop shadow too. I did go in with my blender pen and just correct any areas where the grey had gone where I didn't want it, and then all that was left to do was adhere the panel to my cream card base with double-sided tape, make sure it's lined up and press it into place. And that completes my bonus card. So that's 11 cards I've made with the pattern paper from this kit, which, as I said at the beginning, these are the Simple Stories Heart Collection pattern paper and stickers. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press the like button to let me know. If you didn't, feel free to press the dislike button. Let me know in the comments below which of these cards was your favourite. I am hoping to make another video with this kit if I have time, so be sure to press the subscribe button on screen now if you'd like to see that, or if you want to see any of my other videos. There are also a couple of other videos showing on screen right now if you'd like to see more from me straight away. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!